we were late because my dog pooped on the floor.
Oh.
My dog pooped on the floor.
All right, rough start.
No. People want to hear that.
Don, how about you go?
And they chose specifically to poop on a white rug.
Welcome to the 86 That Podcast, where 5 college filmmakers sit down with a special guest each episode. Directors, writers, producers, actors, and other creatives shaping the industry to talk movies, the creative process, and the ups and downs of making their work. Follow us on Instagram at 86 That Podcast for episode highlights, exclusive bonus clips, and even chances to ask questions to future guests. We appreciate you tuning in and hope you enjoy.
All right. Well, today's episode is a little bit different. We don't actually have a special guest today. We are the special guests. We are meeting. We thought it'd be good for our listeners to kind of, for our first episode, just kind of to learn who we are a little bit, get to know us, and kind of like differentiate our voices a little bit before it just becomes all 5 of us talking to a random guest, and you don't know who's talking to who. So. With that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce everybody here. John Brown.
Hello.
He is a director, producer, and editor and writer. He just finished his 6th short film, You're Smackin'. He is currently coming off of an internship from Utah that he just finished over the summer. Carter is a VFX editor and writer and director. He just finished a little bit more VFX on his film Vacuum, which he screened for us at a screening just this past 2 weeks, 2 weeks ago. Which I don't know what Carter. I don't know.
Until you did your homework and not improving these bios right now.
I know you guys so well. So our next host on the podcast is Andrew Blackhurst. He is a cinematographer and actor.
Wow.
Nope. I'm not an actor. Not an actor. Not looking for acting work.
He is a cinematographer and colorist. He is from San Marcos, but he actually lives out his summers in Taiwan. He makes most of his films out there. He just finished a film out there, actually. I thought it'd be worth it. It is his longest yet. It's 20 minutes long, and he plans to submit it to some festivals really soon. My name is Nathan Wethington. I am a cinematographer. I just finished my film, Beauty in the Ordinary. I'm hoping to release that to film festivals pretty soon. Our last host, saving the best for last, is Lane Blakley. He is a director and editor. He just finished directing his latest film, Boneless. He is a graduate of the Texas State Film Program.
You're the only one out of the 5 of us that is not like actively pursuing a career in the film industry. You said it is more of a hobby for you. In what ways do you see yourself having film as a hobby? Is it like occasionally freelancing, or if so, what positions, or is it just strictly like cinephile moviegoer?
Well, I think it has to start with cinephile moviegoer. I've realized over the last year that there's a lot of movies that I still haven't seen, and so I don't think that my education is complete. So I'm trying to emphasize that part of it more, just like actually seeing movies and studying movies. Freelancing thing, the way I feel about that is that I would, if any of y'all asked me and I was able to be there, I would be there in any position that you needed me.
But are you like actively looking for it?
Am I actively pursuing it?
Yeah, are you like looking out for it?
Not at the moment. No. I'm not like searching for, boom op.
Yeah. Okay.
Roles.
Occupations.
John had Lane in his contact on his phone as Lane Blakley
Not even
boom
Lane
op.
Blakely.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, it was
hold on.
Desire
Just Lane
Let
boom
let me do the whole aside.
Yeah, he's got to
okay?
explain himself because he was a terrible person.
Okay,
So,
okay. Hold on. Freshman year, I made a short film called Proof of Desire, and I knew nobody at Texas State, and so I sent out a Canvas crew call, which is like a way we could send out the entire theater major and film majors that we need help on our short film. And so I sent one out, and 2 people responded, Lane and some other guy, and Lane was the only one who had a resume with his application. So I was like, yeah, this guy is cool. And then so I met him on set of that short. And so when I got his phone number, I only knew him as the Proof of Desire boom op. And so that's why I put it with his name so I wouldn't forget who Lane Blakley was. I forgot, like, years after I've gotten to know him, I forgot that was there. And so one day he called me and everyone saw that it said Proof of Desire boom up. But it's not there anymore.
John, in my phone for the longest time, you were John, writer-director guy.
Actually?
Yeah, actually,
I didn't know
'cause,
that.
I mean, when I first came here, I that was all I just put their first name, because I'm horrible with names, so I just put what position I knew they were in. And when I first met you, you said writer director, I think. So I just put that in for you. So I actually have a question for you. As like a writer director, you kind of see the whole project from like start to finish, like the whole entire thing. I was wondering, what like part in that process do you feel like most energized by, or like most motivated to make the project? And then also, what part of that process do you feel like least energized by, or hardest to get through?
I've made 6 short films now, and I could say out of the 6, even the ones I've produced that I haven't directed, it's always like peaks. Like it's always while I'm writing, I'll get the light bulb moment, and I'll become like super motivated and passionate to tell a story. That, like, for example, Sunday afternoon, I was in the middle of writing like the second draft, and I got so excited to just go out and shoot it that I bought the fake gun candle lighter on eBay. Like immediately, like I stopped writing and went to eBay and I bought it, and so it came to me, and so I had the gun in my hand, not the real gun, the fake gun in my hand, as I'm like finishing the second draft of the script, because I like to like hold and touch things that I know will be in the movie, because it like will motivate me to put that much more effort into it. On the latter half, the least energized, I don't know, I'm pretty motivated throughout, but if I like put a least energized marker, it would be like in a thick of pre-production. Like just things are just there's like 1,000 to-dos, and things are not always going to plan. It can be very discouraging, but if you have good people like y'all are and a good team, then it makes it worthwhile.
Yeah.
Aw, thanks. I like that idea of buying like the props and stuff like that, and like that I never really.
Oh, it's terrible. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't do that. Don't buy the prop. And
no,
then...
not when you're writing the second draft. It could be cut immediately. It could.
Okay,
There's no shot. That was so dumb.
Fair enough. I guess fair enough.
That scene could be cut, and I'm holding a $30 prop that I just bought for no reason. You know.
So you were like the first person when I came to Texas State. You were the first person I met, like in a film class, and we worked on like a music video together. And immediately I could tell you were very organized, and much more organized than I was. And then eventually I realized that like this investment in college I was making was so worth it, because I met you, and obviously I met everybody else.
Aww.
We're just tossed into everybody else, huh?
Okay, not like
You know, we somehow made it. We somehow made it into a
Everybody
podcast.
else.
We made it into a podcast with you, but you know, John's the only one that gets named. I mean, that's fine.
well, I'm
That's okay.
talking to John right now, Nathan. I realized that like I had a lot to learn. Obviously, I knew I was going to be learning in college, but I had a lot to learn from other people. Organization was a big one that I struggled with before I came here. Like, has there ever been a time where it like clicked and you were like, oh, I need to organize stuff more, because I just had I didn't plan it, and now everything's gone to crap. You know?
Yeah, when did spreadsheets get their number one customer?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess that's just how I was raised. I don't know. My dad's a very, very organized person. The filing in his office is like insane. It's like it's so efficient. And so I don't know. Being raised in that environment, and he's always like on top of, like, growing up, he was on top of like deadlines and doing your homework and putting your best foot forward and all of that. And so it just kind of came inherently. Making projects, it was just implementing that into film.
There are film students who, are successful in the sense that they get, they're able to make things. They're able to make a lot of things, and they're able to see a lot of those projects come to fruition. And then there are a lot of film students that want to make a lot of things, but they don't ever really get that far. And do you think that the organization and the intentionality behind it is a factor in what you've been able to accomplish?
I think
like
it
setting realistic
definitely
standards.
helps. Yeah, it definitely
that.
helps that I've intentionally thought of templates and ways that I could best position myself where I can write a script and then have it produced to the best of my ability, in X amount of months. Whereas if I didn't have that and I was super unorganized and I just kind of threw something together, then it could be produced, but it won't be produced to like the level I want it, and it won't be produced to as efficient and as quickly as I want to put it out.
I think that the way that I feel like that can like happen both ways, because I've definitely met film students who like are really organized, but that actually like makes it harder for them to make the film because they're so focused on getting all the pre-production materials that they never actually get to the actual filming of it. They just postpone it because they're like, oh, I'm just still working on the script, still doing all this, and they never get to it. But the great thing, I know this is kind of like a complimenting John section, but the great thing about John is he has, you know, he has a great like
when's my turn?
You know, balance with those two things.
Andrew, spinning off of what you were just talking about with like being able to be organized, but also have like the, you know, the gall to just be like, hey, nothing's perfect and I still have to execute my plan. The plan still needs to get done. And I think that I see that a lot in how you make films. And you know, the most common thing I hear you saying is, we're doing it, guys. And it's because you have like this like drive that it's like, it's going to get done. And, you know, it kind of reminds me of like guerrilla filmmaking, and it's very indie, and it's incredibly indie. And I just want to know, like, when you're making your films, like, when did this approach come to you? Was it like when you first started making films and you were just like, I just want to get something done? Or was it something else like in your past that like kind of motivated you to like be so determined to get stuff done?
I actually think that it's because I failed so much. Like, I started filmmaking a lot earlier than I think a lot of people did in college. And I mean, I have tons of films that just totally failed because of the reason that you're explaining, where I just had to learn the hard way that, you know, if you're not actually in it, then you're not going to like the final product, even if you get to the final product. But most of the time, actually, what happens with me, and I feel like this resonates with other people that I've talked to about this, if you have an idea, you can spend all the time in the world talking about that idea and perfecting the idea, but it never actually gets out there. Mm-hmm. And pretty soon you're going to get tired of the idea because all you've done is thought about it. And that's happened to me so many times, to where I've thought about an idea for months and months and months and months, and then I made the idea perfect, and then I'm like, I don't really want to do it anymore. So what I found is the best thing to do, and the best thing for me when I grow the most, is to just go out and do it. And even if like the final product is not what I imagined at the start, or it's not as good as I thought it was going to be, the films that have failed for me, the films that are still in my, like in DaVinci Resolve right now, not even exported, those films are the films that I've learned the most. And I think that, you know, I've been very blessed to have the resources to do that. Oftentimes people don't necessarily have the resources to just go out and make a film, whatever. But now with phones, I mean, you pretty much do. But I think that those films were actually the ones where I learned the most. And so I mean, my big thing is just go do it. Because if it fails, it fails. You're going to learn a ton, because I've learned tons from all of my failures.
Okay, so then what is your development or pre-production look like then? I feel like me and you are opposite in that way. Like, do you shooting over the summer in Taiwan? Like, how do you and Mulder ensure y'all get the shots or plot points you need when you don't necessarily always have the script completed, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of embarrassing to bring this up. I was kind of hoping that this would kind of stay in the friend group, that a lot of my films don't have a script until.
Well, it's interesting.
You know,
I mean, you're making. I thought it'd be worth it, a 20-minute short film, when you don't even have like a script or like a full-on pre-production plan built out. And like, how do you go from that?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Actually, like me and I work with a guy named Mulder in Taiwan. Right now, he's actually currently in Boston as a grad student. We will be having him on the podcast, so stay tuned for that.
Yes,
he's a great filmmaker in Taiwan, currently in Boston. But so I work with him most of the time, and me and him have actually talked tons about this. I go back for summers to Taiwan, and before that I was staying in Taiwan long term, so we were able to actually plan our projects a lot more because I had so much time. Now, during the summers, we have very, very little time to make a short film, and we have very little time together, and it's honestly really hard if you're co-writing a film to do it overseas. It's just really hard. So oftentimes we really hit the ground running when I get to Taiwan, but we don't have much time. And one thing that we've always thought is we really want to make a film where we can actually fully plan it out. So it's not something that I actually think that I want to promote to people. I don't think that it's a good thing to not have a full-on plan and a full-on pre-production packet before you go into production. Because me and Mulder have always dreamed of making a film where we've got everything planned out, because honestly, all the problems come because we don't have pre-production. But I think the most important thing for Mulder and I and how we work is just pushing through, because there's going to be tons of problems if you don't have a full pre-production thing. And we're both very aware of that because we've gone through that so many times. So when we go into making a film, we realize that, hey, we don't have the full script yet. So this scene actually could be cut. And we have to be okay with that
Losing
reality. And or we have to rewrite this scene and reshoot this scene. And because we're, it's a skeleton crew and everything, we're not paying a ton of money to have to do that. But you have to be aware of that, because there are tons of problems that come if you don't have your pre-production set. So I'm not saying that it's a good thing. I actually think that
become really good problem solvers.
A hindrance.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
What are the differences in being a filmmaker in Taiwan versus the States? What are the unique differences and challenges that each one has, and is one more friendly to it than the other in your experience? Just could you talk a little bit about that?
I really don't think there's one that's more friendly. I just think it's different. So like in Taiwan, locations are the easiest thing. Which here, locations are often the most time-consuming, expensive, and hard things, because you're not working with film people. You're working with people out of the industry who have to try and work their schedules and work their mindsets into the film industry because we want to use your space. In Taiwan, that's not really a thing. I'm not really sure why that is. I think part of it is because when I'm in Taiwan, I'm shooting with such a skeleton crew, small camera. So I think often people kind of just think that I'm a YouTuber, that I'm not making this, cinematic film. I'm just, kind of shooting a YouTube video, which helps a lot. But also the fact that I think that a lot of businesses here in the U.S., if they see you shooting, they're like, hey, I want a cut of that if you're using my property. Like, I want money. In Taiwan, that's not as much of a thing that happens. And I think that's just a culture thing. Now, in America, at least for me, Taiwan doesn't really have a culture of filmmaking, really. It's not something that you push your kids towards. It's not something that there's not a big industry there. So actually, it's really hard to find the personnel that you need to make a film. And it really takes a village to make a film. Speaking from a person who's made so many films with just 3 people, it's so hard to make films with just 3 or 4 people. It's really, really tough. So being back in America, it's amazing because I have you guys, and I know that on basically any weekend I can ask you guys, hey, could you come out and help me out? And that's just not a reality in Taiwan. But also actors are really hard to find. So yeah, there's benefits and costs, and you just kind of have to weigh those things. Now, as a visual person, I prefer being in Taiwan because locations are so important to visuals.
Like Netflix quality in your short. Yeah. It's like insane.
Well, thank you.
And you got it for nothing. You got it for free.
I can see that
this
you
incredible landscape.
Yeah, you just ask this man, you're just like, oh my God, that shot was so great. He goes, oh yeah, that was 2 streets from my house.
Lane, you've talked with me a lot about you growing up writing stories and falling in love with stories as a kid. I'm curious, what about your upbringing or your personality do you think led to your love of creating stories? And also, do you see through line between your older work and what you're doing now?
I'm from a small town in Texas, raised in that kind of environment, and I was just around a lot of people who told really good, sometimes they were really funny, sometimes they were really moving, really good stories. And so a lot of these people, like my dad's a very good storyteller. My dad has friends, that are very good storytellers, and I was just around. It seemed like that's what adults do to me when I was little, is they just get together and they just tell each other stories. And so I think when I was little, I just thought, oh, well, if I'm going to develop as a human being, I have to figure out how to tell good stories. And I love it. I love stories. And so I think that's really where it came from. And then I'm also just a very visual person. And so movies provided the opportunity to combine both those things. And when that clicked for me was when I saw Star Wars.
I remember asking you, or who was it? It was Kirby, Somebody asked you what your favorite movie was, and you checked your letterbox, and you're like, it was like episode 2 for Star Wars. Kirby was like, what? You're like, no, it's all of them. Like, you just like love all the Star Wars movies equally.
Yeah, that's changed. I mean, like, episode 2 is not on my top 4 favorites on my letterbox now. I don't think.
Wow.
Not that I have any, like, not that my opinion of any of those movies has decreased. But I watched it, and I realized it was basically just this guy who was just telling a story to all of us, and he was just using this medium to do it.
Have you seen the stuff on Disney Plus about like the ILM things?
Yeah. There's a good documentary. I like the first season better than the second season of that. But I like stories that are about people, that are about characters, singular characters who have very firm, like, convictions, and against all odds, they are going to, plow through that line. Just, I'm going to rephrase that. They have really firm convictions, and
no, we're keeping that in.
I was thinking of, like, football players trying to get through, like, a
defensive line.
Right. We know you'd be the guy for all our football references.
Something I heard recently was that people who like to write films also really love editing, because a lot of the story is built in the editing room as well. And is that kind of like, do you think that's where you get like your passion for editing, is like through that storytelling process?
Yeah.
So you get to see where the story comes from,
Writing is editing, and editing is writing.
Yeah.
And there's no story, there's no movie until you've put at least 2 shots together. Everything before that, you're just going out and, like, collecting raw materials, but you have to actually, like, start putting them together if you want to see what you're building. Yeah. And when I write, I'm writing for the edit. I write my scripts in a way that,
I love that.
Basically, there's no other way. There's no other kind of sequence of shots you could really come up with that would make any sense.
I think thinking visually is like so important, especially if you've been in the editing room, or if you're planning on editing something and you're like at the shoot. I think it's so important to think about what it's going to like look like and what the next shot will be, because like when you're in the editing process, the story you can lose the story if you don't have the right collection of shots,
Yeah. Well, it's super important, and this is not really on topic, but super important is transitions. You have to be able to transition from one shot to the next. There's a Steven Soderbergh quote where he said, like, 90% of a great movie is, great transitions. Maybe I'm probably butchering that quote, but but I think it's true. That's the thing, that sticks out to me a lot when I watch a movie is transitions. And you can tell when there's a bad transition. When there's a good transition, you can't tell, and that means it was a good transition.
And let me tell you, if you ever get the pleasure of meeting Lane in person, you should count the seconds it takes before he starts a story. It's amazing. He will tell you a story the second he sees you, and you can just see it in his eyes that he's a storyteller, because he just tells stories all the time, and it's amazing how well he got at that.
Speaking of good storytellers, Nathan, with your next short, was that good? Was that a good transition?
Yeah.
Nathan, with your next short,
that was a great transition.
You're currently in development of Dweller, your upcoming short, yeah?
Yes.
To the extent you're comfortable with telling, what aspects of your life do you think are shown in the script? Like, in other words, what specific thing about the project makes you passionate about telling this story, or any stories that you've written, directed, or shot? When it comes to like script writing is actually like my least favorite part of the filmmaking process. Yeah, I struggle a lot with it. It's like for a lot of people, it's like a very calming and very like, or maybe not calm, I don't know, but just like experience where, you kind of just get to write whatever you want and put it on a paper. For me, it is very overwhelming, and I just feel like I never know what is the right word to put on the paper. I guess when it comes to like writing these projects and stuff like that, it's every single thing that you write, you're told to like put a piece of you in it. Or just because good scripts are personal. It doesn't mean that they're literal. Like you're taking like a physical piece of you, into the script, but you're putting something that you can relate to better than anyone else in the room into that project, and that's the reason why you're telling it. And so I feel like I just write scripts in that sense. The Dweller comes from
it comes from like I've always loved period pieces. They're like my favorite genre of films. Is just taking you to a different time in history. The level of research and depth to just try and make you believe that you're in a different time is insane. I have been doing so much research. This film takes place in the 1870s, so it is like 5 years after the Civil War ended, and it's just so much like to think about what this family would be thinking about in this type of situation. So I mean, I guess personal to me, this is kind of a long-winded, very roundabout answer, but personal to me would be parent relationships. I tend to take a lot of my writing in the family roles. There's always a family kind of revolving around my projects, or some type of like tie to a parent in some way. And I feel like a lot of that is like the biggest personal parts to me. Just the way in each, like one of those characters, I will write as if I would be responding to them. I feel like I write in the way that I try and keep one that would be the most like me responding to them in that situation if I was in their situation. All the other characters are then their own kind of personal thing, but one of those characters I try and put as the most like, because it's closest to my morals, so then it makes the most sense in the script, because it's like a realistic morals rather than making up their morals, making up their choice. It's like what I would do in that situation. So to me, that would be the most realistic to read off of a screen, because it's actually what a real person would do. So I always put at least one character that does all of those morals, and that happens in the script as well.
Nathan, you have a different relationship with film than a lot of other filmmakers do. You were really into movies, but you didn't necessarily think of it as like a career choice for you. How do you think that gives you a different perspective on filmmaking, being, trying to get a start in the industry, or you're just learning about film? How do you think that gives you a different perspective on those things than somebody who's always wanted to, make movies like me?
I don't know. I actually I don't know if I necessarily, like, I've always, like, felt like I was lacking because of my perspective of starting later than everybody. Like, it's always bothered me, or, like, I guess, like comparison is the thief of joy. It really truly is. And in this industry, it's very hard to keep that away. That is honestly, I think, majority of the drive for a lot of the, like a lot of what I do or I have is just that I felt like I am, 3 steps behind the other film students, and I've always felt like that a lot of my perspectives or my opinions might not be as important as someone else's, just because they have had more experience or have had more. I very early on, and I think I'm getting better at it now. To be more confident in the work that I make. But I've always been, if I'm working with someone else that has been doing this for a long time, and in my eyes, like, hearing them talk about it seems like they are way more passionate about that specific moment in this, or they see something that I don't, and I'm like, that's really cool. I always that perspective has always been like I am playing catch up, and but yeah, I mean, I've always loved movies, so like that's the thing. Like, the thing I studied most was cinematography, so that was like when I would watch films, I just always would just like gawk at every cool, fun shot. And I would try and the fun thing that I would do is there would be times where I'd just turn off the audio, because it'd be a movie I've seen thousands of times. And I would just sit there and I just look at the camera work, because I just loved it so much. And I know No Country for Old Men. I watched that with no sound. That was such a great experience. That was such a great experience. And like, you just get to see like all their watching a film with no sound, you see entirely the intention just fully with the camera, and how they tell the story linearly through just camera direction, and it's just so cool. It takes away, like, it gives like a whole new perspective to it. So I guess my perspective being from a later thing is like I've always just wanted to like, I try and just work as hard as I possibly can to make sure that I'm it's like fighting that feeling of catch up.
Right.
If you don't know anything about Nathan, he has an amazing grit when it comes to filmmaking. I mean, our last screening, he stayed up like 3 days in a row or something, 2 days in a row to finish his short film for our screening.
Well.
And this happens all the time. Like, he stays up so late when he's writing a script. He stays up. He does some photography as well on the side a little bit. And I'm watching him edit these photos, and he will zoom in to a wide shot and like make it like every pixel has to be perfect on his screen. But do you think that this is like, that's where this comes from, or does like that side of your like grit and just determination to make it perfect, do you think that comes from somewhere else, or do you think it comes from what you were just now talking about?
I appreciate those are very, very, very nice words. I mean,
I don't know anybody else who paid some dude in India $40 to teach him After Effects at 4 a.m. You know?
Yeah,
I think you're the only person I know.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I always am in that like mindset that it can always be better. It can always be like, it's never good enough. I have this, it's like the stupidest thing, but it's like my favorite quote from any movie, specifically from Whiplash. And I have it as my wallpaper on my desktop. And it's the two most harmful words in the English language are the words good job. And it's because if you settle for good, then you'll never be great. With editing, because I just did a bunch of editing that's what they were speaking about with my last film, where I stayed up very late doing VFX. I never touched VFX before, and I don't know if I ever will again. It was a lot. But my friend here, Carter, is a VFX editor. He just did a whole bunch of like Blender effects and honestly effects that I couldn't even name for his film Vacuum. And I just want to ask, like how does a person get into that?
When I was younger, it started with stop motion animation. I watched this video called like Battle of the Brick or something like that, or I can't remember, but it was this Halo, like the video game Halo. This person made Legos with like Halo armor and stuff like that, and animated like this huge battle between red versus blue. And in it had like VFX where like people were like, they were fighting. It was super dramatic, but it was really violent. It was also really violent and over the top in like a funny way. It was supposed to be like a Quentin Tarantino violence kind of thing, where like people would be shot and like they'd be like they'd explode everywhere and their Lego pieces would fly all over the place. And that got me really into like stop motion, and I was like, I want to try that so bad. And so I did, and I would like I'd buy Play-Doh to do like blood explosions and stuff like that, or like, and I'd go over the top, and like it's kind of probably really warped for me, but I think I was like 8 or 9 doing this stuff. But I'd be like, I set up like car chases where like there's people like jumping on top of the cars and like shooting machine guns at people and stuff like that. And
at 8 years old, you did this?
Yeah, 8 or 9. You know.
Oh.
Yeah, it's okay. Maybe it's not okay, but it, you know, it led to me where I am now, right? And
I say that because at 8 I was like picking my nose and trying to figure out multiplication, and you were doing this, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I was also doing that. I was also picking my nose and figuring out multiplication, but I was also making stop motion. It eventually led me to my friend, one of my closest friends, Gabriel. He showed me this guy named this YouTube channel named Rocket Jump, led by Freddie Wong, and I loved his videos so much. He eventually like made I'm forgetting what it's called.
Video Game High School.
Video Game High School. Yes, he made Video Game High School, and it was awesome. I loved that so much. But he also made other videos, like the original Rocket Jump video was amazing, and he does lots of VFX stuff. And he was a huge inspiration for me, like wanting to do that later on. And then I loved YouTube videos, and so I wanted to like make YouTube videos, and I started doing that at the end of high school. And then I was like, I really liked editing. And suddenly it turned into this big old snowball effect of me falling into film school. And I knew that at some point I wanted to do VFX.
Do you see yourself going down that career path, VFX artist?
Part of me is like, no, run away as fast as you can, because right now in the industry, VFX, especially in like the non-indie part of the industry, VFX artists are not really paid very well. And for the amount of work that they do. And so that kind of, at least that's what I hear a lot from other people. And
AI might take over that too?
It scares me away. Yeah, I think so as well. I think it will, and I think that also scares me a lot too. I don't know. It's like I have this moral dilemma inside of me where it's like, should I try to learn how to use that? If I want to get into that world, is that something I have to have for people to hire me? Or should I just not? Like, should I get ahead of the curveball and try to learn that stuff? Or should I just not? And like, should I avoid that as much as I can because I don't like people using artificial programs to make their art? And I don't know. I think there's good and bad, because I think in an indie context as well, I think it could be really beneficial for people to have AI tools, you know? Because it's like, I can't shoot this dude falling off a building, you know? I can't like have that happen on camera because like I don't have a crane to hold this guy falling, you know, from the sky, or I don't have a huge green screen studio. And so in those aspects, it like makes sense because it allows people freedom. But I don't know.
I'll come clean with you guys. Me and Mulder did that for one of our shots in one of the films.
I know.
Used AI?
Talking about that.
Yeah, we use. Well, I mean, the film is not out yet, but we used AI to get a person falling off of a truck.
Is this off
Wow,
record?
that's low.
I think you should leave the call right now.
That's low.
Right.
See, I would
out,
never
guys.
use AI to take a job from you, Carter.
Well,
Wait, what?
Carter, you are also pursuing an acting path. And so I want to know, is there like a through line between those two things for you? Because they seem very different to me. What is something that you've learned, that you're learning in both of those areas that connects them?
I think I've learned that, because I think coming from like, and learning a ton of stuff about editing, this goes back to our conversation we just had, where I think it's so important to understand the editing process. If you're directing, you're on screen, I think it's just so incredibly important to understand how continuity works and stuff like that, and how important that stuff is when you're trying to think about audience like retention, or when you're trying to get an audience immersed. It becomes incredibly important to understand like all aspects of filmmaking as an actor too, and also because you have to think about the editor's feelings. I think it's helped me become a lot more aware when I'm acting of everything that's happening around me, and I think it also makes me a better actor because I understand like the stakes of the take more, and I'm willing to come in and have known about my character and make every shot count. I think is a big one. Obviously, I'm not going to ruin my performance by I'm not going to try to ruin my performance if I think about all these things at once. That might be the case, but I think it's just important to keep an open mind. And that's my big giant through line.
Well, that's going to conclude our first episode of the 86 That podcast. Stay tuned because we already have some really cool guests planned, some really exciting updates as far as the podcast goes as we kind of grow with this whole thing. But if you want to stay updated, go to 86 That podcast on Instagram, and you can also find us at 86 That on pretty much all podcast related platforms.
86 That pod on TikTok.
Yes.
And 86 That pod on TikTok as well. But yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time. 86 That!
Oh, wow. My lordy.
All right.
No, we're not doing that.
There we go.
Thank you for listening to the 86 That podcast. Make sure to stay up to date by following us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Instagram at 86 That podcast, where you can find episode highlights, exclusive bonus clips, and even chances to ask questions to future guests. We appreciate you tuning in and hope to see you in the next one.